Everybody, it's Jason Creel and this is the Lawn Care Life. Today I want to talk to you about mowing wet grass, and I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to mow my yard and it's wet. We've had a lot of rain and there's more rain coming today and looks like tomorrow and next week. But you know how it is if you're in the lawn care business and you've got a lot of yards to mow and it's raining a lot, what do you do? Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about the actual mowing of the grass. Well, I think one, in the lawn care business, and most people understand this, but you need to be somewhat of a follow the weather really closely. So I try to keep an eye on the weather. I probably check it multiple times a day. But if I know it's going to rain Thursday and Friday, then I really need to have a very productive Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You know, maybe start early, work late, bring in extra help, do what I can to get ahead of schedule. I think you also got to work on communicating with your customers. If they, and this is a point where you want to hopefully have weeded out most of your unreasonable customers. You know, you got those customers that if it rains Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and you've got 100 customers, who wants it cut on Friday? Well, all 100 of them do. Well, you know, not in theory, but I mean, some of them are just totally unreasonable and don't pay any attention that it's been raining for 4 straight days and you've probably been rained out. So you need to weed those people out because we ain't got time to deal with those. But for the reasonable people, you know, you communicate. This is where sending a mass text or email and say, hey, obviously it's been raining and we're working as quickly as possible when it gets dry enough to get to everybody's yard as soon as we can. And I think also if you have weekly and bi-weekly customers, it makes sense to me to go out there and take care of those weekly customers first. And you know, trying to get more weekly customers is probably a good thing, but for a couple reasons. One, if you're dealing with wet grass, if you're mowing it every week, well, the grass is not going to be as tall, so it's not going to be, you know, as much of a mess to clean up. And so anyway, I think that's one reason I would prioritize those. And then if they're cutting every week, you know, if you put them off 3 days, you know, let's say you cut it every Thursday and now it's Monday before you get it cut, well, you're going to turn right around and cut again on Thursday. I mean, so you want to get them done as quickly as possible to keep your schedule flowing. So, but the actual mowing, I mean, I think a couple things that just makes common sense. One, if it's wet, you might have to cut it slightly higher to keep from having as much clippings, because if you got the clipping, it's one thing to have dry clippings and you go out there and disperse the clippings. And the way I've dispersed them, you can either use a blower, go out there and disperse clippings with a blower. If you've got a chute blocker, something on your, you know, that you can close to mulch clippings or open to discharge them, one thing I would do is close it to mulch it, and then if you're left with some clippings, you can go back over it in the rows where the clippings are and open it and side discharge it. Or you can, if you just got a mulch deck on there, what you can do is you mulch it and you've got some clippings there, you can raise the deck and go back over the areas where the clippings are and disperse them that way. So there's another way, but that becomes much more challenging if it's wet. So it may be a deal where, and even this can happen even if it's not raining, just the morning dew leaves you some clumpy grass. You may have to leave those lines of grass on the lawn, go ahead and finish doing everything else, your edging, your trimming, and then come back after they've had a little bit of time to dry and they'll disperse a little bit easier. But let's just say it's sure enough wet. Possibly that you raise your deck a little bit so that you're not cutting off as much, so that there's not as much to clean up. And then also just on your turns, you want to be, you know, I think it's probably a good idea to go ahead and walk that property. And if you know that there's certain areas of the property that stay wet, then it may be a deal where you have to use a push mower. You may have to use your string trimmer and cut that area, because you don't want to, you know, get a big 60-inch mower out there in the wet area, and certainly don't want to get stuck or leave ruts or just cause damage that's going to really make the customer upset. So you may get out and walk the property and make sure that it can handle the lawnmower. And of course, established turf is going to do better than if you got really thin turf. It's going to be more likely to leave tire marks. And then on making the turns, I'm going to demonstrate making a turn here. This is not the time to pull your go-kart track, you know, whip it around like you're trying to win a race. You know, this is a time when the yard's wet that I'm going to kind of ease in and make a 3-point turn and try to do as least damage as possible to the turf. And you may talk to the customer. You know which customers are more reasonable. You might have some of those customers that just have old yard and they're not as particular, and they say, oh, we don't care. And you may even call them ahead of time, say, hey, it's wet, would you mind if I cut your grass on behind you? So anyway, those things to be considered. Now let's get started with the actual mowing. I'm gonna see if I can make a turn in my wet yard with thin grass and do as little damage as possible. I don't think I can do it without leaving a tire mark at all. That's just not reasonable in bare dirt, but on the turf I think I might be able to. So let's demonstrate that and then cutting the grass and see how it turns out. First, I got my eye and ear protection on. Today I'm going to be using the Exmark Staris. You know, Exmark is sponsors the channel and has provided the mower for me to use, so I'm real excited about that. It's been a great mower, and I've got several acres of property here, so I need a big 60-inch mower to be able to handle it, so look for that. So what I'm first going to do is try to make a turn and see how little damage I can make. You may say the grass doesn't look like it needs cut. I'm mowing it about every 4 or 5 days because I'm trying to keep my grass 1.5 inches tall and get it to fill in. I plugged it last year and I'm really trying to get it to spread to fill in the last remaining bare spots. Trying to do a turn here, and you can see left a little bit of damage, but that's in the area where there's, you know, just bare dirt. It's not going to be. So in this situation, really, I'd probably go out to the driveway and turn around to cause less damage. You got to be careful with that too when it's wet, that you don't leave some nasty tire marks on the driveway that are going to have to be pressure washed off, because that can upset some people as well. So we'll do the best we can on these turns and start mowing. Well, let's see how it went. I'm gonna finish cutting the rest of it later, but obviously where you have a little grass, it's gonna do some damage. You can see here where the turf is more established, very little noticeable damage, you know, again, anywhere. So you just gotta get the experience on the mower and see, you know, what you can handle. Obviously you wanna play it careful. This is my own yard, so I'm not as worried about it as far as leaving some turf marks here and things. Might actually rough up the dirt a little bit, help my grass fill in, because I'm trying to aggressively get this thing to fill in with all the rain we had. I think we'll get there pretty soon. Tips can you share in the comments about how do you handle mowing wet yards, both from just the actual mowing side of it and also just from a business side, communicating with your customers. I want to mention the 2020 GIE Expo. Obviously with the virus going around, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but I know those guys work on that expo year round to get ready for an awesome event. And you know, if the circumstances allow, I'm certainly excited about being there and being a part of it. So sometimes the way I look at it, you know what, the tickets are so cheap for people to go that honestly, if some reason we weren't able to have the event, or you know, if I was out $10, it's not really the end of the world. And what they're doing, they work with some of us YouTube influencers, and they give us an affiliate link. So basically we get a small commission if you sign up the link. But the good news is you get a half price ticket. So tickets this year for the early sign-ups are $20, but if you use the link, that it'll be $10, you know, in the early period. As it goes on, the prices go up, but you still get half off. So I will put the link to my code if you want to get the half off your ticket, and of course it would be a way to support the channel. There'll be a link in the description of this video. But I'm looking forward to participating again if circumstances allow. We certainly don't know what's gonna happen over the next few months, but hopefully it'll work out where we can all get together and hang out and have a good time while practicing some safe guidelines. There's over 500 videos on the channel. I encourage you to check those out. Some resources available for lawn care professionals at lawncarelife.com. Talk to you guys later. I'm gonna finish cutting the yard. Bye.